The Trump administration is closing the vice slowly on Tim Walz as the Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota is completely blowing up in his face. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. Part of why we're happy is because we won the last election. None of this would be happening, guys, if Trump didn't win. Always go back and thank God that Kamala Harris is not president. Here's Brandon Gill smashing Tim Walz.
The famous economist Milton Friedman famously remarked that you can't have both open borders and a welfare state. And for decades, the Democrats have been trying to have both. They've invited as many people as they possibly could from all over the globe into our communities, including tens of thousands of Somalians into Minnesota, and then opened up the welfare state to provide benefits with almost no anti-fraud provisions whatsoever. And this is the obvious result. We knew this would happen, and yet Democrats are pushing this for political gain.
It's purely for political gain. They do not care about people. I've said this before. They're using Somali immigrants. That's why I like this episode, guys. We're going into the big picture philosophy of illegal immigration. Will Trump stick to it? You know, he's got to feel our backing him so that the polls remain strong for him. Here's Byron Donalds on the subject also, just on the basic philosophy of illegal immigration.
We're going to have people from the left talk about pathways to citizenship. I don't support them. I never have, because what it does is it creates an open sieve where you're going to have more illegal immigration into the United States. My position has been clear. I'm opposed to birthright citizenship, have been for a long time. We need to end chain migration, go back to a quota system and immigration into the United States.
The wind's blocking him out there, but he says we need to end chain migration. That is when you bring a family in and then other family members automatically come in. And his biggest beef right here, the explanation is we can't in culture, that is, make enough of these immigrants that are coming in. If they're isolated in a community and they remain Somali, they never become American. They're not pro-Constitution. They're not pro-America. They're just here to grift. Same thing with the illegals from South America. The problem is not that other people are coming to this country. This country is made up of all kinds of people that came from other countries, but they wanted to come here and become what makes America great again, which is not what made Mexico great or Somali great, because they're dumps.
Which prioritizes immigration that supports America and America's interests, not chain migration, which what we have now, which doesn't promote assimilation of even legal immigrants coming into the United States. That's my position. It hasn't changed.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got this urgent new message from our show sponsor, Chapter, and this affects the post-annual enrollment plan. Annual enrollment plan ended on Sunday, so now there's a new game in town. If you're aging in, that is, if you're turning 65 and you need help picking your Medicare helper, then call Chapter. The call is free, and they'll help you as you turn 65, pick your very first Medicare plan. They'll shop all of them for you. Here's a quick post from one of you. It says, I called Chapter with a 4-hour wait. By the way, that 4-hour wait is no longer because we're past the December 7th deadline, okay? It's not going to be all clogged up anymore. They texted me back and apologized and asked me to call again, and I got through. My plans were great, and they did show me a savings when my state changes their program. I'm very pleased with talking to Chapter. That's the main thing, guys. You guys love them, so I love them. You might be in the wrong plan because Medicare.gov website gave out false information, and the government is giving some people a second chance to remedy that. Call Chapter and they'll help you navigate from now through all of Q1 for your Medicare Advantage plan. And you're still able to switch to other plans, but you have to call them and they'll help you navigate and teach you how to do it. You'll find yourself the best option. The sooner you call, the sooner you can be sure that you're all set. Call that number at the bottom of the screen, 631-961-8696. That's my friends at Chapter. Tell them Doug in Exile sent you. 631-961-8696. It's the first pinned comment below. Now back to our show. Okay, this is with Director Hassett, who could be our next, he could take the place of Jerome Powell for the Fed.
Well, the way that in the end, you know, with an eye on the horizon, that this problem gets fixed is that real wage growth goes up enough so that that huge 23% hole that was dug by Joe Biden is a thing of the past, because people have money in their pockets, enough money in their pockets to bring their real standard of living back up. The real standard of living in the U.S., the purchasing power of ordinary Americans has gone up by about $1,200 so far this year.
Are you feeling that yet? Are you getting any benefit yet? Let me know in the chat below. You guys tell me if you believe what Hassett is saying. Remember, this could be the next head of the Fed when Jerome Powell steps down.
If you look at the great data on Friday that said that real wages were up 2.5% over the last few months, that happens when you get positive supply in the economy, and that's what drives growth up and prices down. And so what you want to do is lock that kind of gain in where you're seeing real wages coming from positive supply shocks. And if you do that, then just as in the 90s when we had positive supply shocks from the computer, and Alan Greenspan was willing to sort of let the economy run a little bit hotter, we have an opportunity with AI and all the productivity that we're seeing to do so again, but to do so with a great deal of caution as you watch the inflation numbers go by.
Okay, so we're ending Biden's inflation. That's the good news. Here's Scott Bessent. We showed him the last video. He's just one of my favorite thinkers on the All In podcast.
My worry is that the Fed is turning into universal basic income for PhD economists.
Right. It's like a welfare program for PhD economists, because that's all it's doing is giving them money for being wrong. All the experts are wrong, according to Bessent and Hassett.
That I don't know what they do. They're never right. If you were to
you should double the number of PhDs. If you go to 700, they might get it right.
Well, look. If you were to look at the central value tendency versus how they've done, it's shocking.
Right.
It's shocking. I said, like, if air traffic controllers did this, no one would get in an airplane.
If air traffic controller performed as bad as the economic experts that are shouting down the Trump administration saying this is wrong, this is scary, they've never seen it operate before. But you look at the numbers of the economy and it is recovering. It's coming back around, slow, but it's going to heat up over time, especially if we get that ease in interest rates, which is scheduled, supposed to come up, and then the internet's going to blow up again. The stock market's going to blow up again. Here's Election Wizard. President Trump's approval rating climbs by 5 points since November, and we're here in December. According to Harvard, the approval is up to 47%. Disapprove is down with 49%. That just means people aren't buying the lies of media anymore. And now here's another one with Kylie McEnany with Scott Bessent. I think Scott Bessent makes an important point. What's the important point?
And I interpret that for you. I'll translate. He's saying no excuses here.
No excuses. And especially when it was actually some of the defendants' lawyers who said it was like they were filling the cookie jar up, and like they knew people were stealing out of the cookie jar, and they just kept refilling it and refilling it and refilling it. And I think Scott Bessent makes an important point there. We love immigrants who come to this country, but we need an assimilation process. We need a fervor. You could have your own culture, that's fine. But a fervor for the American dream, a love for this country, an appreciation for taxpayer dollars, an appreciation for the values that bind us together, despite our different cultures, backgrounds, languages, et cetera. I think that's an important point you've heard Bessent make, Stephen Miller as well.
Look at Ilhan Omar. What a scam. Does it look like she's assimilating into our culture? Looks like her head is being swallowed by a mollusk. That's how I describe her. Wait, there's more on the Supreme Court. Will the justices back up President Trump when a lower court says that he exceeded his authority?
We're going to hear oral arguments on the limits of the executive branch. Justices will decide if President Trump exceeded his authority by firing a member of the Federal Trade Commission, which is an independent agency. That case could expand presidential powers if the court sides with the White House.
He's wrong on that. It will not expand presidential powers if the court sides with the White House. It will correctly declare the presidential powers as correct under Trump. That doesn't expand anything. He should be allowed to fire people in the FTC. That is under the presidential authority. So now will the Supreme Court overstep their boundaries and limit the executive branch's authority? I believe they won't. Under John Roberts and under Clarence Thomas, I don't believe they will. That's my opinion. I'll keep you guys posted on that Supreme Court news. Just wanted to throw that in as a bonus. Little dessert. Here's just the news. Here's the best news of the day. House releases $900 billion defense spending authorization bill, $9 billion over Trump's request. Yes, we need defense spending just to catch up and make up for what Joe Biden cut and turned into a LGBTQ musical, turned our military into it, and we're still recovering from that. The House late Sunday, that's last night, released the text of the National Defense Authorization Act, which codifies several of President Trump's executive orders. The 3,000-page bill, I'm against that, was released on Sunday yesterday and is about $8 billion more than what Trump initially requested in the budget, Deseret News reported. We'll see if Trump is on board with that. The NDAA codifies at least 15 of Trump's executive orders, which is good because if they're not passed into law, they go away when the next Democrat comes in. All those executive orders, all 15 of them can go away. But if you pass them into law, it's much harder to get rid of them, including those related to construction of the Golden Dome missile defense system, building physical barriers and deploying more troops on the southern border and modernizing development weapons. The bill also includes revitalizing the defense industrial base and undoing woke policies enacted during the Biden administration. I'm for that, as my son is a Poolee in the Marines. He's going to be sent off next month. And so I don't want to have him be indoctrinated in a bunch of woke DEI, LGBTQ agenda when he needs to learn to just be a lethal fighting machine. Let me know in the comments below how, if you guys support that, support the military expansion, or are you more of a libertarian Rand Paul and like shrink the military because there's no real threat from China or any enemies or the southern border? I'm Doug in Exile. Subscribe.